I'm too short for this stick. So I am going to introduce Mayor McGinn. Mayor McGinn has been a tremendous ally on the fight to stop coal exports. He has been a leader, and he stuck his neck out when not a lot of other people were, and he is my personal hero.
Oh,
Mayor
thank
McGinn.
you. Thank you, Robin. You know, it's worth reflecting a minute. We just heard, this is being teed up. This is being teed up once again as that old, we've dealt with this issue before, right? It's the environment versus jobs. It's being teed up that way. I just want to talk about jobs for a second, because let's acknowledge the work that we've done in this region and what the real effect on jobs will be. We already heard one effect, shellfish, right? Fishermen, that's one effect on jobs. We know how to create jobs here in a clean way. We're building more windmills than we've ever built before. We actually have to turn them off sometimes. We have so much energy, right? That creates jobs. We put people to work in our neighborhoods, insulating homes, caulking windows, taking care of crawl spaces. And we're creating hundreds and hundreds of jobs in the city right now that saves people money, makes our neighborhoods better. And we're creating jobs that way. We have manufacturers in Sodo that build things. I was just approached by folks who want to double the number of employees at Filson that makes clothing. We have companies like Cascade Designs, Feathered Friends, Alchemy Goods. We've got people that make stuff here. We've got people that make boats and planes, right? And we're going to get in their way. We're going to have those coal trains going, and we did a traffic impact analysis. And those trains will clog up Sodo and clog up the waterfront and hurt our jobs producing businesses. In fact, we have started an economic impact analysis to get at the bottom of this. So don't be fooled about the jobs argument. It's just not so. We know how to create jobs. And we know how to create jobs in a clean and sustainable way. We know how to do that. And we're a leader at it. We're a leader at that. And it's worth pointing out that clean and sustainable way. Right? We heard about all the coal dust that will come off these trains. We're committing right now to remove 50% of the toxins from the Duwamish River with our early actions, and we'll keep going to remove all of the toxins from the Duwamish River. Do we really want coal trains rolling by, dumping coal dust back in the Duwamish River again? No! Right? Do we really want it landing here in our parks and our kids? Here's another thing we've been working on. We've been trying to make it easier. I mentioned mobility, and I was just talking about mobility for port, mobility for manufacturers, mobility for industry. But how about just getting around for people? And how about that? We just got our report from Commute Seattle. Number of people getting to downtown by bus, train, walking, biking is going up. We're getting around better. We're getting around in healthier ways, in ways that clean the air, make it easier for people to get activity into their daily lives. We're building neighborhood greenways and safe routes to school for our kids to walk. Right? Do we want to clog that up? Do we want to make them breathe coal dust on the way? Absolutely not. So health, transportation, jobs, but of course it's the environment. We can be really proud here in Seattle of all the things we've done. And I know there are people from outside the region, and it's a Pacific Northwest thing. We like our quality of life. We like our clean air. We like our clean water. And we believe we can lead. We believe we can lead. Right? We stopped buying, in the city of Seattle, we stopped buying our energy from the Centralia coal plant. And we are 100% carbon-free utility. And that's leadership. In the city of Seattle, I've asked our pension board and our financial managers to divest from all of their fossil fuel holdings. That's what it means for a region to lead about the future we want. When we do that, why would we want to export dozens of Centralias overseas? Why would we do that? It doesn't make sense. We know how to have jobs, we know how to have quality neighborhoods, we know how to have clean air, we know how to have healthy places, we know how to have a beautiful Puget Sound, and none of it includes coal trains. So you keep doing what you're doing. You keep doing what you're doing. I'll keep doing what I'm doing. We're reaching out to mayors across the state. The impacts we're talking about locally. our impacts that are felt in communities up and down the rail line. And I've already reached out, and we're bringing together mayors from around the state to talk about this. We've reached out to our fellow governments and the tribes. We've met with them and spoken to them, and for them it's even deeper than that. It's cultural. These are their lands, these are their places, this is where they buried their ancestors. And for them it's deeply, deeply personal. And they've asked me to share this with you. And they are committed to working on it too. So we can lead the way to a better place, and it starts right here with you. It starts right here with rallies like this. Keep it up, and thank you for everything you do to make this place better.
I have a suspicion a city with a lot less carbon pollution would be a happier city. I think that's true. So I met Bill McGinn when he came to meet with our Green Ribbon Commission. We had reconvened the Green Ribbon Commission to talk about how we could reduce carbon emissions in the city of Seattle. And when he spoke that day, it was in a meeting room, and he spoke about the divestment. He'll share with you what he shared with us then. And I, that afternoon, met with my finance director, just, what's possible. And that evening I said, we're gonna start down this pathway. And it was pretty easy to do that. And I just want to share some observations from Seattle as to why it was easy for me, and I think it's a good, right thing for Seattle to make that commitment. First of all, we had made a commitment years ago for our Seattle City Light to be carbon neutral and to get out of, we made a decision, this was before I took office, the city council and the mayor made a decision to not buy power from coal anymore. So we stopped, we got out of our long-term contracts with the coal plant down in Centralia, and it exposed us to some trouble, but since then we've gone long on wind, long on solar, and long on conservation, and we don't buy coal anymore. And we're in a much better position because of it, and now Centralia is on path to being closed down by 2025, which is great news. And I'm not going to talk too much about the coal trains here, but it's like, how could we sell out of coal? How could we stop using it and then ship the equivalent of, say, a dozen Centralias a year through our city to be exported somewhere else? That just seemed really inconsistent with our values, and that spoke to the divestment issue as well. So what did we do instead? I mean, one of the ways you can produce new energy is by conserving new energy. So we launched something we call Community Power Works. Over 1,500 homes, 1 million square feet of commercial property, 24 restaurants and stores have already gone through a retrofit, an energy efficiency retrofit process. And there's something more to that too, which is we worked with the labor unions, communities of color, the contractors to create a community workforce agreement so that a certain percentage of jobs that we do on that retrofit have to be local hires. And of course, the beauty of energy efficiency, and I'm now stealing this from Dan Jones, is you can't outsource that job. You have to be in the crawl space. You have to be on the roof to do the work. And we've created a lot of jobs locally, in doing that. And this is a path to economic prosperity and shared prosperity here. I led a trip to China. We have a sister city in Chongqing, China, and we brought some of our green builders because we are some of the leading energy efficiency experts, so we have cheap electricity. If we can figure out how to save money with cheap electricity here, imagine what we could do elsewhere. That's what we can export instead of coal, right? Those are real jobs. Those are real jobs, and it's jobs that use our brains and our innovation and our creativity. I've been enjoying the last year or so because it's been the 50th anniversary of the Seattle World's Fair. And from places on Queen Anne, you can see the Space Needle. And 50 years ago, that was put up because it was going to be putting Seattle on the map. And the theme of the fair was City of the Future. Seattle would be a city of the future. And I was introduced by, I'm losing the name now, the guy from Almost Live, John Keister. John Keister introduced me as we kicked it all off. And he said it was so exciting, when the World's Fair, because it was going to be jetpacks and flying cars and monorails everywhere. And what happened? Now we have a mayor that wants us to ride a bicycle. What happened? And it was funny, right? And it was funny, and you can kind of make fun of them for not quite getting it right, because actually now, 50 years later, the challenges are in fact quite different. We're not trying to figure out how to put more energy into things to make the world better. We're trying to figure out how to take more energy out. And, finding waste, eliminating waste, putting those savings into other things is far more economically productive, environmentally productive, healthier, too. And we are trying to figure out how to create a walkable, bikeable place with more transit. So we have different ways of getting around that are far more efficient, far better for the planet than jetpacks and flying cars. But they did get it right that we would be a city of the future. They absolutely got that right. And you all know Seattle Center. It's where we have our Civic Science Center, Arts and Culture. We were going to put our mark on the map, our place in the world by being innovative and creative. And just a week ago, I was at the kickoff of the Bullitt Foundation's headquarters. It's a living building. I talked about it in private too. It's so simply described. Imagine the building in which all of the energy that's used, is sunlight that hits the building, where all of the water that's used is rainwater that falls on the property. And we can do that. And in a way, that's for our generation, for this generation, this is kind of the Space Needle for the next 50 years. This is our city of the future. This is how we're going to do it. So when Bill McGinn shows up and says we should think about, university campuses should think about divesting from fossil fuels. When we talk to people about and we're working in coalition up and down the border, and I was actually speaking to Mayor Robertson of Vancouver. They have the same issues. It's not just coal trains. It's the tar sands pipelines, through Canada. There's kind of a blue line here up and down the Pacific coast where we can make a difference. And so when Bill McGinn shows up and says we should think about doing this, absolutely we should think about doing this, and we should do more than that. We should do it. Because think about who our identity is as a city. Think about what our vision of the future can be for our kids. And, for all of those reasons, to express what our values are through our actions. I was really proud that we were able to go first, and I was a little jealous. We hadn't thought of it before, and I'm extraordinarily grateful there's somebody like Bill McGinn who's willing to stand up and challenge people, and to ask the kids. And by the way, the kids are ready. I know that. The young kids are ready. They know that we need to do something different than what we've been doing. And it's kind of funny. I was sitting next to a buddy of mine from my Sierra Club days, and every once in a while when we'd be in a fight, somebody would say to us, well, what about political reality? Political reality means this. And somebody said smartly to us one time, well, but what about, actual reality, right? And actual reality is, if we're going to serve our kids, if we're going to give them a planet as beautiful as was given to us, actual reality is we got to do something different. So with that, I'm proud to introduce Bill McGinn.
Oh, thank you, Kyle. Now, when the Griffith family approached the city and said they wanted to build the Great Wheel, it was with that backdrop, that knowledge that we are going to have a lot of construction down here, replacing the seawall, which we need to do, all the other construction that's going on. And you know what? Unlike, say, digging that coal out of Wyoming, they didn't ask for a single government subsidy for this. They said they'd do it all with their own money. And let's just think about this a little bit. What are the proponents of the coal exports claiming? Right? Their big argument is jobs. We need to do this for jobs. Well, people come to our waterfront right here. As I was coming down Alaska Way, I saw people streaming down towards the waterfront from Pike Place Market. I know millions of people come through Pike Place Market a year. So we're talking about sending coal through our community, sending it to China, and then they'll send us money. We got such a beautiful place with such a magnificent waterfront, they just come here to give us money. It's called tourism, right? And it's in fact, it's an export. That's real economic development, a quality of our place. I went to China last year. And I saw the level of pollution they had. Even over there in China, the public is starting to question the leadership of their country for failing to give them clean air to breathe. And the Chinese leadership knows that they have to make a change. The reason I was over there was because I was leading a delegation of green builders to China for a green building conference. They wanted to figure out how to build their buildings more energy efficient. In this city, we've committed to reduce our energy use in our downtown by 20% over the next 20 years. We have building codes that encourage energy efficiency. In fact, we have a new standard called the Living Building. And just last week, or 2 weeks ago, we dedicated the new building. We had the ribbon cutting of the Bullet headquarters. The energy it uses comes entirely from the sun. That's what we should be exporting to China, our green building technology, not coal. You know, in fact, we have one of the fastest growing urban economies in the nation right now. And we're doing it because we're looking towards the future. You know, the Great Wheel is a new icon of our waterfront. The Bullet Foundation's a new icon of our city and sustainability and energy efficiency. And right down the way here is the Space Needle. And 50 years ago, a little more than 50 years ago, the people of this city said, we're going to put this city on the map. We're going to put it on the map as the city of the future, is what they said. And the Space Needle was that symbol, and the Seattle Center was that symbol. Now, I was being introduced at the kickoff of the 50th anniversary by John Keister of Almost Live fame, and he said back then they were promising us flying cars and jetpacks, personal jetpacks, and what happened? Now we have a mayor who wants us to ride a bicycle. What happened? He said. And it's a good line. You know, and as Yogi Berra said, the future ain't what it used to be. And they didn't get it right in all the particulars about what the future would hold. But you know what? 50 years ago, they did get something right. They said we were going to be a forward-looking city. And we're going to look to innovation and creativity, right? We're going to look to arts and culture. We will look to the beauty of our place. We're going to look to our own community to lift ourselves up. And that's what we've done over the last 50 years. We've worked to restore Puget Sound and the salmon runs that the Lummi Nation depends on. You know, we've worked to make our buildings more energy efficient. We're going to work to make our waterfront more beautiful. We're going to work to clean up the Duwamish. We're going to work to set a standard of economic development in which we're bright green, in which we're socially just. Right? That's what we're going to do here. And other cities are going to look at this. I loved what Reuven had to say. You know, shipping coal is a 19th century proposal. This is a 21st century city. This is the city of the future. There's a way for us to grow jobs in a way that's consistent with our values. And these coal trains will hurt that. So that's one of the reasons we formed, and it's not just here, it's not just Seattle. We formed a leadership coalition against coal trains. We have tribal leaders, we have city leaders from up and down the train line, and we're going to keep building that coalition. And we will show them that we have a better way here in the state of Washington, we have a better way here in the city of Seattle, and we'll do it from the leadership side. But I'll tell you something, I was active in the Sierra Club before I ran for office, and I was active in my neighborhood. And the reason I was active was that I believed that citizens organizing together to demand things from their leaders could make a difference. And let me tell you something, now that I'm mayor, I know that it's true, okay? The power belongs with you. So organize, support the elected leaders who stand up to take a stance, and we'll stop these coal trains. Thank you.
We look forward to your testimony. Mr. McGinn, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Upton. It's a
I'm
real
sorry, I should say Mayor McGinn.
Anything works. Chairman, thank you for the invitation to testify. It's a real honor to be here. A long time ago, when my hair wasn't gray and my beard was red, I worked for Congressman Jim Weaver of Oregon, over there in the Longworth office building. And Northwest politics often involve energy. Congressman Weaver was deeply involved in championing conservation as opposed to new nuclear power plants at that time. And conservation was indeed the wiser choice. The Whoops nuclear power plants, which were endorsed by Congress, ended up defaulting on billions of dollars on municipal bonds. We now face another significant energy choice for the Pacific Northwest, one that could have dramatic consequences for our economic and environmental well-being. whether 110 million tons of coal a year will be transported across the Northwest and shipped to China from Northwest ports. To put that in perspective, the carbon emissions from that coal are more than the emissions projected from the Keystone XL pipeline. So I want to describe this just a little bit. To ship this coal to China, terminals are proposed north of Bellingham, Washington, near Longview, Washington, as well as in Oregon, and British Columbia is looking at coal ports as well. To ship this coal, we'd be looking at, to get to Bellingham, we'd be looking at 18 coal trains a day, each 1.5 miles to 2 miles long, traveling from the Powder River Basin in Montana and Wyoming through Spokane in eastern Washington, down the length of the Columbia River, the border between Oregon and Washington, and then from south to north, almost to the northwest corner of the state in Bellingham, traversing multiple towns and traveling along the Puget Sound coastline. The coal trains are uncovered. They lose approximately 2% of their load on the route. The proposed coal terminal near Bellingham sits on ancestral Native American lands and is opposed by the Lummi Nation, both because it violates their burial grounds and because coal pollution in Puget Sound threatens their salmon rights, and those are treaty rights. I tell this story because the local impacts of coal trains upon communities throughout Washington are significant. Over 40 local elected officials, including tribal leaders, have joined me in a leadership alliance against coal because of the serious negative impacts on their communities. And I'd like to talk about that. Coal train traffic will clog the railroads. Coal dust and diesel exhaust from the engines pollute water and lungs. Neighborhoods along the rail line will see decreased quality of life. And it will have significant negative transportation impacts. I ask you to consider the impacts upon communities as these coal trains go through. In Seattle, in our industrial area, we have 4 at-grade crossings, and then we have 4 at-grade crossings between our downtown and our waterfront. Each of these areas are significant job-creating areas in their own right, and in order for freight traffic to reach our port, they have to go across these rail lines. We worked with a consulting firm, Parametrics, to take a close look, and we were talking about increased gate downtime up to 2 to 3 hours each day. That has economic impacts as well as public safety impacts upon our police and fire departments. Now imagine that impact on cities and towns along the entire route. These railroad lines tend to go right through the middles of towns at grade. And then let's take a look again at just the broader impacts. We've spoken about the climate impacts already. This is equivalent to all the gasoline burned by 50 million people each year. Now, unless we stop these coal terminals from being built, we will be responsible for hastening the advance of climate change here at home and around the world. Now, I've heard members of this group talk quite a bit about jobs. I just want to say we've been working really hard in Seattle to recover from the recession caused by lax oversight of our financial institutions in this country. And we're creating jobs. We're building the greenest buildings in the world. We're retrofitting buildings, and those are local jobs. You have to be in that crawl space. You have to be operating those energy control systems. We've been eliminating waste, putting the money we save to productive use. That's frugal. That's efficient. And that's reducing demand for our clean wind and water power, which means we can put that electricity to better use in our economy. In fact, we should be exporting our green building technology, not coal. In fact, we are. Our architects are building buildings in China and all over the world because they're some of the leading architects in the world. Now, I want to return to the issue of the Whoops nuclear power plants that I mentioned at the beginning. We somehow have this belief that economic growth requires ever-increasing amounts of energy use. We proved that to be wrong in the Northwest. We have had significant economic growth while reducing our energy use. We've grown by being more efficient and cleaner, enhancing our quality of life. That's the pathway to creating good jobs. The same is true with coal trains. They'll hurt us economically. We have better ways to create jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor McGinn. At this time, I'd like to...
So I get the privilege of introducing Bill McKibben in a minute or two, but I just want to talk a little bit about Seattle, because Seattle's a great place. And I got 3 kids. One of them goes to school with Sarah, who you just heard from up at Nathan Hale High School. And Seattle always has worked to lead. A little bit of history. back when they told us that our economy would collapse unless we built more nuclear power plants, Seattle said no to the nukes. Right? They said that way back when. Guess what? Our economy didn't collapse. It seems to be doing okay. But the nuclear power plants, they didn't work as they were advertised. In fact, Seattle then went further. Seattle decided that it would no longer buy coal, and we got out of the Centralia coal power plant, and Seattle City Light is the first carbon-neutral utility in the nation. So now the question is, how does a city do that? Well, we're working on it. We're working on it. We have the greenest buildings around. We're getting more efficient. We're adding bike lanes. More people can bike. There's a beautiful thing out there called Solarize Seattle, where community members can pool their resources together to get solar. We're continually making a difference. But the reason we're here today is because all of those improvements, all of those changes we make will be wiped out if we let coal trains go along our waterfront and take coal to China. I understand people who have done the math on this. Oh, I'm stealing someone else's line. It's more carbon in those coal trains than is in the Keystone Pipeline. And here's what's happening. You all know the story. You know all the story. What we have is massive reserves of fossil fuels in the inland part of our country, and to get it to other places, they got to come through these West Coast ports. And Seattle's going to have to lead again. We're going to have to lead again. We're going to have to stand up and say no. We're going to have to unite with our brothers and sisters up and down the coastline, and unite with our friends and neighbors across the state and across international boundaries. We've started doing that here. There's something called the Leadership Alliance Against Coal. We have 75 city and tribal leaders across the state who have all joined this alliance, all saying no to coal trains. Now, the first time I met Bill McKibben, he came to town. I'd heard of him, but he was coming to town to talk to our leadership here, our community leaders who are working on our updated climate action plan. And we met in a conference room, and he talked about the divestment movement and why that was important. And I was listening really carefully to it as he went through it, because, the question I had, and he'll explain it better than I can, but the question I had was, will that really change the behavior of these companies? But then I realized it wasn't about changing the behavior of those companies. It was about saying what we stand in, what we believe in, and what we want our society, our planet to be in the future. And after I heard him, I canceled a meeting, called up our finance director, and said, can we do this? Can we as a city divest from fossil fuels? And, he's a finance guy. He's fiscally conservative. He's like, it's never been done before. But, we can certainly start trying. And that's what we did. We've started, and we've announced, and we've gotten 10 other cities to join us to say, we will go down the path to divest ourselves from fossil fuels with City of Seattle money. So he's a persuasive guy, this Mr. McKibben. He's now I get to introduce him. He's written a bunch of books. He's a founder of this campaign, 350.org. It's coordinated 15,000 rallies in 189 countries since 2009. Time calls him the planet's best green journalist. Boston Globe said he's probably the country's most important environmentalist. And it's really simple. It's the same thing that Sarah had to say a few minutes ago. We're the first generation that can really see the effects of climate change. We see it all around us. And we're the last generation that can do something about it. That's why Bill McKibben's here. That's why you're here. Welcome Bill McKibben to the stage.